You ever feel like you have a hidden talent? Something you can't quite put your finger on, but it gives you this edge in certain situations. Well, today, we're going to dive into one person's incredible story of discovering and honing their own unique ability, what they came to call their social superpower. Imagine hearing that from people you've just met. Seriously, for the author of our source material, this is something he hears all the time. It's the first real clue that he has this unusual skill, an ability to connect with people on a really deep level, almost instantly. So what is this superpower? It's not mind reading or anything like that, but something way more intuitive. And for the longest time, the person wielding it didn't even realize he was doing it. Let's break down how this thing actually works. Okay, so here's the core of it. He has this disarming effect. People just feel comfortable dropping their professional masks around him. But here's the wild part. He can't consciously try to do it. It only happens when he's genuinely lost in a conversation. It all boils down to what he calls unambiguous gut feelings, which let him do this sort of real-time vetting of a room's entire social dynamic. It's pretty incredible. And believe me, this was no mere party trick. In his professional life, working in the intelligence community, this skill was so effective that his bosses would literally ask him to sit in on high-stakes meetings. His only job? To just do that thing he did. And within minutes, all the stuffy formalities would just evaporate, paving the way for real, productive collaboration to happen. So where on earth does a skill like this come from? Well, you're not going to find it in a classroom. It was forged in the fire of some pretty difficult personal experiences. As the author puts it, this was his grade school education in the School of Hard Knocks. He's pretty sure this superpower actually started out as a survival tool. See, as a kid who was constantly bullied, he likely developed this hyper-awareness of subtle social cues, body language, tone of voice, unspoken intent, as a necessary defense mechanism just to navigate a hostile world. The first really painful lesson came when he was a teenager, training to be a pilot. A mechanic he calls Buck, this guy he both feared and kind of looked down on, yelled this compliment at him across the tarmac after a particularly smooth landing. Now, back then, our narrator was deeply insecure, and he covered it up with this fake arrogance. So instead of just saying thanks, he gave a dismissive, insulting reply. He totally misread the situation and, in his own words, basically threw a generously offered gift right back in the guy's face. And here it is, the big aha moment he had later on. The ball busting from Buck and others? It wasn't actually bullying. It was an invitation. A clumsy, classic attempt to test his character and see if he was someone worth getting to know. He had completely misinterpreted an olive branch as an attack. And this is where the real learning started. That cringe-worthy failure, it became the catalyst. It was the first time he actually reflected on an interaction and realized, without anyone telling him, that he knew he'd offended someone. This was the very first step toward consciously understanding that intuitive gift he had. So, if his childhood was grade school, then his 6 years in the U.S. Army served as his undergraduate education in people reading. It was this unofficial but incredibly effective training ground. Think about it. In basic training, everyone starts at zero. Your social status, money, where you came from, all of it is just wiped clean. This clean slate freed up all the mental energy he used to spend on being self-conscious. And for the first time, he had the headspace to really start noticing and, more importantly, trusting those gut feelings he had about everyone. I absolutely love this metaphor. He knew his intuition was having some kind of effect, right? Like a monkey pushing a button and hearing a beep. He knew he could get a result. What he didn't get yet was the complex machinery behind it. That he wasn't just making a noise, he was operating a really powerful tool, like a microwave oven. This ability was really put to the test just weeks before graduation. As you can see here, he gets himself into some serious trouble. On graduation day, of all days, he's hauled before his company commander, expecting the absolute worst. But his gut told him the captain wasn't truly furious. He was just going through the motions. So instead of making excuses, he offered this surprisingly honest, vulnerable explanation. And the result? It completely disarmed the officers. The whole thing was diffused with just a warning, and he was allowed to graduate. Wow. All right, so he had the raw talent, and he definitely field-tested it under pressure. The final stage of his journey was about turning that raw intuition into a mastered, formal skill. This was his doctoral studies, so to speak. Years after the military, he's working for an advocacy group in DC. We'll call them Advocacy Group A. His employer sends him to a professional development course on, get this, strategic influence. This course would turn out to be the final piece of the puzzle. It was right there, in that course, that he was first introduced to the formal concept of emotional intelligence, or EI. All of a sudden, this mysterious, lifelong gut feeling had a name, a definition, and decades of research backing it up. It wasn't just some weird thing in his head, it was a recognized and highly valued skill. The course taught him that EI is kind of like a coin with two sides. One side, which he had pretty much mastered by instinct, was all about reading other people holistically, understanding their body language, their tone, all the unspoken stuff. But the other side was about managing how you are perceived, consciously adjusting your own delivery to make sure your message lands exactly the way you want it to. And that was the part he hadn't really focused on before. This formal framework was everything. It organized all these separate pieces he'd been using his whole life. It gave him the theory behind the practice, and it boosted his confidence like you wouldn't believe. His natural talent was now a professional tool he could understand, explain, and consciously use. His superpower was officially supercharged. So, what's the big takeaway from this incredible journey? Why does this story about developing a personal superpower matter to the rest of us? This slide just sums up his path so perfectly. His education wasn't traditional at all. His grade school was social failure, his undergrad was the Army, his graduate work was applying the skill in his career, and finally, his doctorate was that formal training that tied it all together. And this is the crucial point for every single one of us. The most powerful, unique skills we have often aren't the ones we learn from a textbook. They are the ones forged by our own personal history, our failures, our challenges, and our triumphs. Our struggles are so often our greatest teachers. So that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Take a look back at your own journey. What challenges have you overcome? What difficult situations have you had to navigate? And what superpower might you have been developing this whole time without even realizing it?